absentee tax is killing it. Otherwise, the townhouses are absolute no-brainer. They've been doubling every 10 years, capital growth, whereas you just don't get that capital growth in apartments all the time. It would be better if the government took that away. They would make a lot more sales and build a lot more homes, and we wouldn't be in this housing crisis. You're painting a picture that sometimes you're just working off a brochure or a couple of images and a floor plan. To create that visual element where the buyer can see themselves living, or create the cash flow to show that this is a good investment and it's all about the numbers, is a real art.
Melissa Montgomery, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Russell. It's good to be here.
It's always good to have the international flavour in the office, and Melissa over from Singapore. Melissa, for anyone who hasn't met you yet, can you introduce yourself and tell us what you do at JLL?
So I am sales director for Australian projects and developments. Essentially, I've been in real estate for 15 years. I've been in Singapore for 10 years and JLL for the last 2 years, setting up the Aussie desk. And so what we specialise in is working with property developers in Australia or residential and selling into Asia. So our main buyer type would be, Singapore couple purchasing an apartment off the plan in Melbourne for their children's education. We have a regional team of brokers, about 27 brokers in the team. Shanghai, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, Malaysia, KL, Singapore, obviously. New markets for us, which we're planning on tapping into this year, are Vietnam and Taiwan. A lot of sales are now coming from Taiwan and Vietnam, trying to get the money out, and also the middle class boom in Vietnam. And a lot of them also have based in Singapore. So a lot of our clients were educated in Australia. They love the Australian education system. They love that it's freehold. They love the lifestyle, and they've got a strong connection to Australia. Obviously, price points in Singapore are very high. So to be able to buy an entry-level apartment for $500,000 in Australia, right next to a university, is a no-brainer for them. They don't like paying rent. They don't like paying tax. And they see Australia as an ideal investment option.
I'm not sure where you're getting anything for $500,000 these days.
No, that's true. Well, Albert Park at the moment, actually, I've got a one-bedroom for $525, completing in January, which is an absolute bargain, and it's a fantastic location. I used to live on Albert Park Lake, and it's all about the location. It doesn't come with a car park or a view, but it's perfect, lock and leave, bolt hole. You can Airbnb it. You probably get $600 a week for it, and there's only 100 apartments, top architect. You got the lake across the road, tram on your doorstep to South Yarra in the city.
Match made in heaven. Now, and with that, what is it? As far when you talked about getting money out, and you talked about the rise of the middle class in Vietnam, and that's probably more sort of driven from their economic environment that they're exposed to. Why? And you sort of briefly touched on why they love the Australian market. Is it? And then you also talked about for their kids or their investment. Is it purely an investment play as opposed to they planned on living and coming here? Is it considered a safe haven or just a reliably strong property market? Or what do you think the main driver of those the Asian sort of
motivation? It's actually quite diverse. So what we're seeing now as well in Singapore particularly is a lot of people are applying for PR in Australia, which is driving them to buy real estate there. Education is by far the main driver, but also it's very expensive to live in Singapore. So even we're seeing a lot of buyers buy for retirement or a holiday home. So they'll Airbnb it out for most of the year. We do a lot of sales in South Bank, Melbourne, and they will go skiing in Hotham and use it as a stayover or for holidays. And Airbnb, and the yields can be around 9-10% or higher if you're in the right location.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a combination of reasons. But they've all got an emotional tie to Australia. They love the lifestyle, the fact that it's freehold. Singapore's obviously mainly leasehold, and stable government, and lifestyle and education.
From what I can understand, you're predominantly with JLO. Is it predominantly apartments that seem to be the biggest sort of product that you move at the moment?
Yes, so we mainly focus on apartment projects because a developer will come to us with 300 units, 1,000 units. There's enough supply that it'll give us a fair amount of time to work through the sales stock. We are getting a shift. The more sophisticated investors now, they do a lot of research. The Singaporeans will come into our launches with an Excel spreadsheet. It's all about the numbers for them. Victoria's just brought in absentee tax, but we've got a lot of townhouses. Melbourne at the moment is really undervalued. It's a soft market. It's a great time to buy. They've got a government stamp duty for off the plan, but the absentee tax is killing it. There's 4% on top of land tax. So the absentee tax is only applicable to foreigners. Otherwise, the townhouses are absolute no-brainer. They've been doubling every 10 years, capital growth, whereas you just don't get that capital growth in apartments all the time.
Do you think the apartments that are coming online at the moment in your opinion, is there sufficient stock? Is it making a dent in the well-known housing crisis or housing shortage in Australia?
There's definitely plenty of stock, less so in Brisbane. Brisbane's definitely the tightest supply, just with the upcoming Olympics and the historical floods and all the workers working on the Olympic infrastructure. Supply there is very tight, and obviously the market there is still really, really strong. Apartments in Perth are still relatively easy to get stock in, but it's just trying to find that right location. Asians still love the city. They don't really get that Perth is not a city yet, and a lot of people prefer the suburbs. So if we're trying to sell a project outside the city fringe, it can be a little bit more challenging. They love the river and they love, obviously, education. So you've got a project 6 minutes from Curtin University at the moment, and that's doing quite well. So anywhere near universities is a key driver.
And I suppose, and correct me if I'm wrong, I suppose that's really removed from once these developers approach you guys to sell their stock, it's, I assume, not too late, but it's the location's already been chosen and picked by the developer. And I guess you just assuming that they've done their DD and knowing who their buyers, who their project, their target market is.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are in a very fortunate position where we will speak to a number of developers each week asking us to sell their stock. And not a lot of the time, but we have to look at that project quite closely, and it might not work. Might not be a great location that will work for our buyers in Asia. It's got to be near transport, the city, university, affordable. So sometimes we'll say, and the fees have obviously got to be incentivized as well. So we need a certain fee structure that, because there's a lot of people in the chain, like we're listing the project, but then we've got brokers underneath us, and then we've also got runners. So the runners will go and, they'll have their own clients, they'll introduce them to the broker that's listed it. So there's a lot of people in the pie that need to be paid.
Everyone wants to clip the ticket.
Everyone wants a clip. So we need to make sure that the fees stack up as well. Also, particularly in Singapore, they've had a bad run of some dodgy developers from certain countries, not Australia. So we have to do the DD in Singapore is very strict. So we have a very diligent DD process before we onboard all of our developers that they have to pass, and some developers don't pass the DD test. And also the Singaporean purchaser, they're very risk averse. They want to know, and we only mainly work with, your mainstream developers with a strong financial track record, proven success, and really solid architects. We want our clients to make money, and we want them to be repeat purchasers. So we're very particular who we work with as well.
What are the top 3 deal breakers that kill a sale in Perth apartments? The stuff developers don't realise matters until it's too late. And what I mean by that is, is there a particular thing that you'll buy as if they are targeting that market, that the sort of like the non-negotiables, whether that be an in-house gym or a wine cellar or whatever that may look like? Is there anything there that, that you talked about the universities or the education?
Yes, we sell a lot of projects in Melbourne, would be our biggest market because of education and it's just bigger Asian community, I think. But in Melbourne, we do lose a lot of sales to if there's no balcony. Even though they rarely use balconies in Singapore because they want to be in the aircon, they still would like a balcony. So that's one. They're very numbers focused. So if they'll always look at the body corporate and how much it is to maintain, but at the same time, they still want all the bells and whistles of a resort style facilities. So in Perth, not a lot of projects put in pools and that. So we're always educating them. In Perth, it's a bit different. Everyone goes to the beach and that's their outing. You don't want to be paying for a pool and all that maintenance. It's all about the location and that type of thing. And then also educating them that everyone in Perth has a car. When they go to uni, you can just buy them a $3,000 car because it's safer as well if they're finishing lectures late. But they still want to be on a train. They still want to the train line and they don't get that. The Perth transport system is not as efficient because Perth's so spread out than, the MRT system in Singapore.
And from a buyer's perspective, what's the small detail that becomes a massive trust issue? Like, is there something that they love and need, or?
Sometimes you can have a deal fall over not at the last minute, but when it goes to a lawyer, when it goes to their lawyer, and the lawyer goes through the contract with a fine-tooth comb, and there's some clauses in there that buyer beware, or the sunset clause, which every contract has an end date. The sunset clause might be 8 years. And they think, oh, no, the building's going to take 8 years to build. I'm like, well, no. Every contract has to have an end date, and that's put in there by the vendor's bank. Developer doesn't get paid until settlement, so it's in everyone's best interest to have it built as quick as possible. But sometimes, the clauses in the contract can spook the buyers. So you need to make sure that the lawyers that you're recommending are familiar with off-the-plan contracts, because at the end of the day, the developer wants the project to go ahead. The clauses are put in there by their solicitor to protect them, but also it's a worst-case scenario, right? So you just need to make sure that the buyers are working with a lawyer that knows off-the-plan contract and understands them.
And it is adding the international flavour to it. You've not only have you got the risk of the currency and that going up and down.
Yes.
So you've got the currency influence on the price. You've also got the build time. So the time to build it. There was a case in Perth not long ago where they needed a certain amount of sales. Maybe they didn't have JLL on the team, which was the issue. And exactly. They didn't quite. The sales took longer than what it is, and the building took longer than to get out of the ground. And then they went back and revised, and within that time frame, the cost of construction substantially increased.
Yes, which is quite common now.
Yeah. So generally speaking, a watertight contract is you pay today's money and you get tomorrow's value, and that's on the assumption that property always goes up, which we know it doesn't. So there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of risk being involved, especially if you got the forex exposure, and then you've got the West Australian or the Australian property hedge as well, where it's like, well, where is it going to be in 3 years' time or 2 years' time? And then also you've got the labour shortages of how long is this? The longer it takes, as you said, the developer wants to get it done as quickly as possible. Obviously, there's a lot of money outstanding in bank fees and interest charges that go on through these projects. So it's in everyone's best intention to get that done. So really, on the buyer's end, there's quite a lot of risk, and it can go either way, really.
Yeah, I mean, the Singapore dollar's been the strongest it's ever been in over 5 years. So it's now they're making 20%. So it's a really good time to get involved. But obviously in 3 years' time, 2 years' time when the building's completed, that might not be the case. But Western Australia have a stamp duty concession applicable to foreigners as well off the plan. So that's a good incentive as well. So it's never been better to buy. They've got 20% saving on foreign exchange, and they're only paying local stamp duty on they got the 75% discount on the off the plan stamp duty in Western Australia. So Yeah, it's a really good time to buy.
And what's the best way to position a Perth apartment project so it feels like a no-brainer?
So definitely connectivity, transport, city fringe or city is the easiest sell, and obviously education, like being near a main university.
And is it true what people say that these days property sells itself?
Yes, it can do. It can do. Although
Or is that a myth to the people that don't hang out A-frame signs?
no, definitely if you're selling completed real estate, well, people can walk through and see and touch and feel everything. Whereas selling off the plan, I've been doing it for 15, nearly 16 years, and it's a real art. You're painting a picture that sometimes you're just working off a brochure or a couple of images and a floor plan to create that visual element where the buyer can see themselves living, or create the cash flow to show that this is a good investment and it's all about the numbers, is a real art. And you learn that on the job. Selling off the plan is very different. It's very buyer focused, 80% buyer, 20% seller, whereas listing a property in Perth that people can walk through is
Touch and feel.
Yeah, 80% seller, because you want to win the listings, because buyers just walk through and they know if they want to buy it type thing. So it's definitely flipped with selling off the plan.
That's why we see the scaffolded stairs so you can see the view.
Yes, exactly. I mean, now it's never been a better time, especially selling from in Asia. You heavily rely on tech. Now they have interactives where you can walk through virtually the apartments, the interactives. You can click on the floor, like level 47, the one bedroom floor plan. It will walk you through the apartment and you can look out the window to the view. So interactives for us in offshore, an absolute necessity. But also, display suites here now, they're quite basic on the West Coast compared to what they build on the East Coast. So the larger the screen, you've got to invest in the interactives.
And who pays for that? Is that the developer that will pay for that? Because that's obviously an expensive exercise to get the modelling done.
Correct. There's a few platforms out there now: Display Suite, Showcase, Lendlease have got. I think their group's from New Zealand. I can't remember their name, but they are the best I've seen. And it's also good. So when you're educating and training our brokers in Hong Kong, for example, all we use is the interactive to do the developer briefing. But that will probably cost them about 30 to 40,000. So when they have a master agent, when they appoint the master agent will give them a menu of items that they'll need to make the project a success. And typically they will or should always have the interactive in if they want to, stay ahead of the piece.
And sell.
Correct.
And what should developers consultant lock in early so the sales team aren't fighting fires later on?
Look, the first few sales are the low-hanging fruit. So you want to get away as many sales as you can early on. Pre-launch pricing, any like incentives, cash rebates, like FIRB now keeps going up every year. If the developer's got a blanket FIRB approval is really helpful to us. Foreign Investment Review Board. So every single residential sale, and commercial probably, for a foreigner, they have to pay a fee from $15,000 per transaction to the ATO. And it doubles every million. So we just did a sale for Tim Gurner, who's one of Australia's top developers. They didn't have blanket FIRB, but the beautiful project in the heart of South Yarra, $2 million sale, that FRB is $60,000. So it's a one-off fee to the government that you'll never see again. But with Victoria and WA, you've got the stamp duty concession on the foreign stamp duty. So it kind of justifies it and they get it. So touch wood, a lot of them just pay it. Having said that, it would be better if the government took that away and they would make a lot more sales and build a lot more homes, and we wouldn't be in this housing crisis because we'd get the foreign buyers back into the market instead of paying this ridiculous money grab fee. If they flipped it and took it away for a temporary period, the foreigners would come back to the market and more developers would get their projects off the ground faster and be building more homes and get the Australian government out of this rental slump.
And would you, contrary to that, would you agree that, some of the Australian buyers would be happy for that Foreign Investment Review Board and that fee to be there? I can only imagine there's a few people out there at the moment that feel that it's the foreigners. There's a lot of talk in social media about it's the immigration that's pushing the housing pricing up in Australia because it's creating more demand.
Yes.
And that's maybe the government's sort of initiative to try and put the brakes on that, to try and allow for local, if you will, people to buy into the market.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, look, it's swings and roundabouts, right? The amount of PRs that are getting approved and the record number of migration at the time to help with the booming economy is then there's not enough housing supply. But what we should be seeing, especially in Perth, where it's so spread out and it takes you, so long to get anywhere, is create the density that Melbourne, Sydney have, bring some life and back into the villages, in Perth around the city in the suburbs. So shops stay open longer, they're busier, restaurants are busier, we just keep releasing more and more bushland, these ugly house and land packages with no trees, and then building more trains and houses. Why don't we create the density, in great locations? And then you get all the NIMBYs.
I think there's some local Perth councillors that will be sitting here saying, hold my beer, Melissa.
Oh, God, it's super frustrating.
Are you suggesting red tape?
Yeah, I think Perth it just keeps the sprawl. If you look at Melbourne or Sydney, the density and the population is, you can walk to an IGA, a mini IGA, and it's open till midnight. Like we're in Perth, because they've got the density, they can do that and it's busy. Whereas Perth is so spread out, I think Perth would really benefit from having that vibrancy, higher density, still have all the parklands, but there's a lot of wasted space.
I think there's a demographic shift as well, and I think in the Perth market, not everyone's in love with apartments as they are in Hong Kong or somewhere that's, the land's scarce. The Hong Kong market's huge and probably the most expensive in the world, and because there's not much of it. And lots of people want to live there. So
correct.
And I think, everyone's probably sold that, the Great Australian Dream or that quarter acre block, which is, that's slowly changing. But are they there at the apartment level? I'm not sure. But it's like the old, for me, I think it's like the old crayfish story that, the international flavours and the international people, they love the crayfish and they're prepared to pay for the crayfish. Then they offer it to Perth locals.
Yes.
They're not prepared to pay for it. They don't want it because it's too expensive or it's deemed it's not. So they're like, well, okay, you don't want it. We'll take the product and we'll get top dollar for it from people that are prepared and willing to pay for that product.
Yes.
And that sometimes can be looked at as the apartment market. Like, we don't want to live in an apartment. So then you take it offshore and you take it to the people that are interested in that and that want that and that's their flavour.
Yes.
Yeah, and then people go, well, these international people shouldn't be able to buy it. So it's like, well, you've all got the chance to buy it and you don't want to buy it because you all want to live in the burbs.
Yes.
45 minutes out of town on the train line.
I think it's definitely a mentality setting. Everyone wants a backyard, everyone wants their own bit of land, and it's that Perth, Aussie dream is to have the land and the backyard. We've been in Singapore for 10 years. We were in a house for 8 years. We've just moved into a condo because we want to stay in that area. And it's like living in Club Med. The kids run downstairs. They've got a pool. They do their swim squad. They've got tennis lessons, basketball court, playground, table tennis, sprawling gardens. They can ride to school, and it's living the dream. Like, there's no maintenance. Like, weekends we're not cutting the lawn. It's all the gardens are manicured and everything's done for you. And the kids can just run downstairs whenever they like and play with all their friends. And then on weekends, everyone's just hanging around the pool, having barbecues, swimming and relaxing.
Sounds like a match made in heaven.
Yeah. So something for Perth to think about, but it's definitely a lifestyle. And I think the fact that Australia has so much land and the government's very quick to release more and more bushland, it's just a matter of changing that mindset.
And getting away from the easy solution. Well, that's all we have time for today, Melissa. Thank you for stopping in and taking time out of your day to on your international jet-setting tour of Perth. And
You're welcome.
Thank you for your time, and look forward to catching up with you again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.